Greetings, everyone. Today, I just wanted to kind of go over some of the type of information that is coming across in the 90 days of training. Basically, what 90 days of chess mastery training is an inside look at my preparation for the return of over the board play. Um, Over the years, I have sought the chess improvement advice of several close friends, and two of those close friends who have accomplished the title of international master both recommended to me the same resource. And that resource was the book Anthology of Chess Combinations. And Anthology of Chess Combinations is a little bit of an older book now, and that just kind of speaks to how long ago this advice was given to me. However, it does not take away from the value of the book. The first time that the book was recommended to me, it was a bit heady. I was not able to process or comprehend the information that was in the book at that time. I believe um, at the time that it was initially recommended to me, I might have been around the high 1900s, maybe even 2000. I'm not sure. Um, it's kind of funny. I feel like I've been there, forever. And then the second time it was recommended to me, um, it was suggested that this was the only book that I needed to work out of. I was told that I should go cover to cover in the book and not worry about actually solving the positions in the book, but to see the positions in the book. The first pass or a couple of passes through the book is more for getting familiar with the positions. And I guess it's akin to the woodpecker method where you see something over and over and over again, and then, it starts to sink in. This was told to me long before the woodpecker method was a thing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't take away from the complicated processing of the positions. And I think that the positions were complicated purely based on my level of chess understanding at the time and even now. So anyway, with the pandemic being where it is, we can no longer waste time doing nothing and, being, upset about, the lack of access to tournaments. We just need to start making some kind of moves to go forward. So that's how we ended up on this course. And basically, what I wanted to do was 90 days of chess instruction and comprehension. And this is an example of that. This is not one of the lessons, but this is an example so that I would be able to post it on YouTube and other places so that people can kind of get an idea of what's going on. So here's position number one. We'll just jump right in. Position number one, as it's presented, and it's black to move. And there's a lot of things going on, so I'll try to speak to that as best as I can. The first thing that we need to be aware of is the fact that Black's queen is under attack. That jumps out at me. Now, maybe it's not necessarily the first thing that we should be paying attention to. Um, Maybe we should start at the very low level and evaluate and assess, what the material is. So let's just do that really quickly. Black has two rooks, white has two rooks. There's two bishops on the white side. There's two bishops on the black side. Both sides have a queen. There's three pawns on the queen side, three pawns on the queen side, and then finally three pawns on the king side. So what we have is equality from a material point of view. The position materially is totally equal. Now we can go back to the, um, you know, what's under attack and what's not under attack. And right away, like I said before, the thing that jumps out at me is the fact that the queen is hanging. So we can't, be willy-nilly and, play things like rook down here and just lose our queen. Okay. So we're going to eliminate those kind of moves. My instinct is that in this position, with the fact that, yes, black has serious control over the e file. He's got some indirect attacking lanes on f2 with this dark square bishop. And then the queen is contacting the rook and the bishop. There's probably going to be and the queen is obviously looking at the other queen, which is protected, by the way. There's probably going to be some type of capture. That's my inclination, is that there's probably going to be some type of capture. Now, my experience speaks to the fact that, white's king, despite having a bishop and a rook and indirectly a queen in play, still feels a little bit weakened as far as the king's safety is concerned. Let me see. Okay, I did not mean to do that. It still feels a little weak as it relates to the king's safety, because the number of defenders of the king is actually relatively limited, in that we don't typically include the rook as a defender of the king. So when I'm thinking defender of the king, I'm speaking to, what's going on in front of the king, not necessarily in back of the king. And in that case, the only piece that's defending the king from the front is this bishop, which is a little bit suspect. So that's what I want to start focusing on first. Now, there is a line that might come to mind with queen takes rook, queen takes queen, and then rook down. I don't personally think that that's going to work, but let's just look at it really quickly. Queen takes rook. Obviously, king takes is GG, right? So, that's not the answer. And that's something that is important for us to note, that we want to find the best move for our opponent. We're not looking for our opponent to go to sleep. Okay. We're looking for the best response. So obviously queen takes queen is what needs to happen here. And after rook down, I don't think that, black has accomplished enough, especially after a move like, let's say bishop here, for example. And then after rook takes, the king steps over, and now what actually happened? You traded a queen and a rook, and there's no win for black. There's no advantage for black. So that can't be the solution. Even though the game starts over, we're looking for lights out. So we're gonna remove that as a consideration, but we must speak to it because it's a contact point. And I'm arguing that a lot of these games in this book are going to be based on contact. So the next contact point that we probably should consider, just to get out of the way, is queen takes queen. After queen takes queen, rook takes queen, and then rook down. I think white could pretty much almost do anything. For example, pawn push, closing in the dark square bishop, and threatening to possibly play something like bishop here or bishop here. For example, bishop can't actually go there, but bishop here or bishop here, closing off the rook, forcing the trade. This does not look promising for black. So we're going to go ahead and rule that move out. Um, so that leaves us with a third contact, and that is queen takes bishop. So let's look at queen takes bishop. And obviously, we must capture this queen. There's no other move to be suggested other than the recapture of the queen. And if you sacrifice your queen, there must be some kind of check. So we're going to take our natural check. The king is in check. Obviously, he has only one choice: run, block, or capture. He can only run. He steps out of the way. The only logical continuation in this position would be the bishop joining the attack on the king. It should be obvious that we don't want to give away our rook and get mated. And I suspect that rook here also is death. So I'm thinking that now the queen is holding the rook. So there's some argument to be made that he doesn't have to take it. But I don't think black wants to capture the rook. I think he's playing for mate. For example, what if white ignored the fact that this rook was under attack and played a move like pawn push? Well, we don't take the rook. We play bishop check, king over, and then bishop takes pawn, check. Not mate on the move, because there is a blocking move, but the next move would lead to mate. So this is the type of position that white is trying to avoid. And this is the first example of an actual mate line, not a drawing line or equality line. So we know that capturing the rook based on this is not what we want to do. All right. So with that said, that we saw the threat. So what does he do about the threat? Now, if he plays rook here, obviously rook to e1 is dubious. If he plays oh, I gotta put the position not accurate. All right. If he plays rook d1, we have something similar, I think. Check, king steps here, bishop takes pawn check, king steps here, and now do we take the rook? It's a free rook. Or do we, what do we do? We don't take the rook. We're not checking him here, right? I mean, that taking the rook is interesting, but what if we check him? He has to go back. He has to go back here. Oh, this is interesting. Check here. He has to go here, and then possibly bishop takes pawn is threatening a huge checkmate right now. So he would have to give up the queen, but I'm wondering if he gives up the queen. Oh, I think he still can get mated here. All right, so this is what I'm just calculating. All right, right now we're threatening mate. So the only way to stop this bishop to g2's check is to play queen here. But I don't want the queen, because I feel like if we play bishop takes queen, rook takes, and now if you look at the material is the same. The bishop has to move. And I'm not so sure that this is the position that black wants to play. He did take the pawn. He does have a pawn. So the bishop retreats. He might get stuck down there. Rook here on the second with the threat. Can't do my arrows. With the threat of possibly playing something like rook here could be interesting. Some would argue. But I think black could do more. What if he doesn't take the queen? Because the king has no squares, right? The king has no squares right now. The king is in a box. Is it even possible to do different color? Can I do red here? Yeah, this is what I want to do. Red. The king has no squares. So if we do something like bishop here, white does not have time for this because of the check, and that's still going to lead to mate, right? But what's concerning me in this position is what if he jettisons the queen here? That's kind of annoying. He can't. How do we continue here? Black sacrificed his queen for a bishop, so he doesn't want to give up a rook, I don't think, unless there's a mate. So I think we'll leave the position right here, and that's the kind of things that we're going to be going over in the 90 days of training. Thanks for watching.